Okay, we're going to get started today. Ms. Morgan, will you please call roll? Here.
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 Okay, we do have a quorum today. Let's see if there are no minutes to approve from our last meeting. So we are going to go ahead and call up our new business, a certificate of appropriateness for the alterations removal of a storage building at 134 North Chestnut Street. Mr. Anderson, if you'll go ahead and sign in, and then you can present your request.
Good afternoon. I'm Robbie Anderson here on behalf of the trustees of First United Methodist Church. We have a request before you today for alteration of a building at 134 North Chestnut Street, probably more known to you as a red brick house that's between 4th Street and 5th Street, the only house that faces 5th Street on that side of the road. That property has been owned by the church since 2004. It was originally built in 1950. And at some point between 1950 and 2004, a garage / carport was added and then later turned into a storage room and into a utility room. And it's been in that way for the 10 years the church has owned it. We are currently between tenants and want to make some fix-up, clean-up to it. There's some stuff in the backyard and play set, things like that, and a few things in the kitchen we'd like to do. But as part of this, we'd like to remove this appendage that we don't think fits very well, and it needs work inside, so we kind of at a one or the other. So we've decided that we would request to just remove it back to the original state. And that's there's some pictures here that show it's a little white addition. It's got some siding on it that just kind of sticks out the side there to the south side of the church, of the building towards the church. And it's just, like I said, just an open type storage room in there. It was, like I said, just added on over the years at some point. But like I said, we are without a person living there right now. I want to take this opportunity to make some improvements to the property. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Are there any questions for Mr. Anderson before Mr. Duke comes up? No? All right, thank you.
Good afternoon. I apologize for the lack of a staff report. I will fill in, though, the relevant items. Mr. Anderson's discussion about the fact that the shed is likely non-contributing is accurate, and that's a pretty basic application. As he stated, 134 North Chestnut Street is a contributing structure in the 1984 inventory that established the National Register designation. No discussion can be found of this small addition. It states that this is a one-story front gable bungalow with a brick veneer and partial width front porch with brick piers. The only thing in your guidelines that generally speaks towards this situation would be either demolition, which we're not talking about demolition of the contributing or historic structure, or would be additions. And I think the additions is probably the most relevant. Additions should cause minimal damage or removal of historic walls. Additions should have no or limited visibility from the street, and they should be compatible with the original building in scale, proportion, rhythm, and materials. In this case, we have an addition that doesn't meet any of your current guidelines. So it's a staff opinion that removal would be compatible with these guidelines and in the spirit of your overall district. Recommend approval.
Okay, are there any questions for Mr. Duke? Thank you, Mr. Duke. Oh, yes, you do? I'm sorry.
Is there an entrance or exit between the addition and the house?
Mr. Anderson might be better able to speak to that.
Yes, there is an original door that leads from what is the kitchen. It's like an exterior door that goes down a couple of steps into this. And I guess one thing there, the outside of the house is still there. On the inside, it's a brick wall. It's just been surrounded. These other 3 walls were added. So if it comes out, there will be a doorway into the kitchen from the yard at that point.
And you're going to keep that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to keep everything that was original. We'll have to make some repair to the eaves, I'm sure, but it will be just fixed back like the rest of it. It may come right off. I don't know how well it's constructed. It may fall off when we grab a hold to it, but we're not planning on changing the exterior wall of the original home at all. And the door is still there. In fact, if you went there today, it's got the locks and everything, like you're going outside, but you're go out into this little room instead of being outside.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Okay, is there a motion to be made at this time if there are no other questions?
I'll move that we grant a certificate of appropriateness for the removal of the covered storage area adjacent to the main structure at 134 North Chestnut.
Okay, and is there a second?
A second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and it has been approved. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Thank you for coming. Okay, our second item on the agenda is, and Mr. Duke, you may have to help me with this, some old business that has been held, and I kind of forget from time to time what we need to do to bring that back on the table. Do we have to have a motion to do that?
Madam Chair, these items have just been held.
Okay, so we can just
So
go
they-
ahead
they
and,
show up automatically on your
okay,
agenda. Unless
Okay.
Ms. Morgan sees different. I believe these have just been held. Is that correct? Okay, thank you. Okay, Ms. Langley, to correct my last statement, item number 1, which was roof material, was a motion to table, and that item would have to be brought back up. If you'll recall, the Abernathy's request has, at 272 East Main Street, has to do with roofing material that's requested for both for the low areas of the house. If you remember, there are several window areas that pitch out. There's also lower roofs. It's a multi-story building, but also has some lower sections. There was a question about the type of roofing to be used on those lower sections, and that item was tabled. And then a kitchen addition was also proposed, and that item was just held. So just for clarity's sake, easiest thing to do would be to make a motion to bring both of these off the table. And that would just be the simplest way to handle it.
thank you. All right, you have heard Mr. Duke's recommendation. Is there a proposal to bring these up off the table again and deal with these today? Is there a motion?
I so move to remove these items from the table.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and we will hear these today. Okay, Mr. Abernathy, if you'll come forward and please sign in and give us an update on where we are today.
Well, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, Mr. Abernathy. If you will just start with the roof material first.
Okay.
Okay?
I have been trying to get prices and other things, but the thing that we were looking at on the roof, right now, it's the house originally had metal shingles, for lack of, I'm not sure exactly what they call them. There's a few houses in town that still have them on them, but they're the little shingle about like this, about like that, and they crimp together. That's what was originally on the house. and those are long run, gone, whatever. When we roofed the house, we used an architectural shingle, and the color of it was they call it slate, I think, and that particular manufacturer is no longer manufacturing, but the rest of them have something similar. So, to match what's there. The low roofs have all this water that drops from the higher level on them, and it wears those shingles out very quickly. And that's why I was thinking of going to maybe a standing seam metal, or even I'm just going to start with standing seam, because I think it'll hold up the best under the situation, and probably do the best job. And I've had some roofers come, supposedly to give us prices. I still haven't gotten a price from a roofer. And I just want to have a choice. Like I say, I may not be able to afford the standing seam when it's all said and done, because I've not been able to get the prices that I need. But I want to be able to have that option to put a standing seam on there, because I think in the long run it'll be more beneficial for the house, and it'll hold up.
Would you please refresh my memory? Are you talking about doing the standing seam on both levels, or just on the lower level
Right
of the roof?
now, I'm looking at the lower level, but I thought about it since we first started talking about it. The upper level, it still has a good roof on it. At the time when that roof is ready to be replaced, it probably would be a good idea to do all of it, if I'm able to do the lower part with a standing seam. But you can do the lower part with a standing seam, and I've seen several houses around the area that has low roofs that are standing seam or whatever, and the high roofs are the shingle, and they look good. And there's not an aesthetic issue with it or anything like that.
Okay, are there any questions at this time for Mr. Abernathy? I may be speaking out of context here, and so if you agree or if you disagree, please step in. But from precedent set in the past few years, we do ask that we're approving something definitive. When a client or when a petitioner comes before us, we are approving something definitive. And so I believe, Mr. Abernathy, that it would be in your best interest and more efficient for us as well, is for you to determine what you're going to do, or at least two options, and come with both of those and present them to us with samples.
What are you wanting?
Well, you have mentioned that you may do the top and you may do the bottom level. You just didn't know. So when we go to approve something, we approve it based on definitives of what the petitioner instructs us. And so what I feel that we need is a specific material item with a sample, as well as a definitive area of your home that you are going to definitely reshingle, recover, however you term that. Joel, do you have any input on that? I feel a little uneasy approving something or disapproving something when I don't know exactly what we're approving. And I may be totally off base here, Mr. Duke.
I'd rather let Mr. Abernathy answer you if he has a certain type that he's looking at.
Right. All the manufacturers have about had these before. That is the, the colors that my wife liked is the antique patina and the medium bronze. And whether it's this manufacturer or another manufacturer, they all make about the same thing. It's just how ever which roofer happens to do the manufacturing thing that we use. It's metal, yes, and this is the way it would be. You know, there's not going to be any nails in the middle. It's going to be passing from these points. There may be some fasteners right at the E. A lot of them do keep from trying to figure it out. I know they were in the book at some point.
Ms. Langley, I think that what I'm hearing, and I'm going to see if I can restate what I think I hear Mr. Everett is saying, that you're asking them to approve the metal roof. You already have shingle. So if you went back with shingle, that would be no problem.
Right.
Okay. So really asking y'all to approve a metal roof, and I believe he identified two colors that it would be between those two. Is that right? Okay. That in your packet attached to the original application should be specs from ATAS International Incorporated. Okay, it should be on behind. Yes, ma'am. It should be there behind the staff report. And these are the yes, ma'am. From ATAS International Incorporated, you've got standing seam metal roof, and am I assuming that it would be the type that's shown here in the picture?
It will be. I'm not sure exactly which one they're showing right there, but it would be similar to that. All of it's going to have a similar appearance.
Okay, so basically it would have a ridge, standing seam.
Yeah.
The question they may have is how close together.
What color is the roof? Gray?
It's more of a gray. It's more of a gray than it is brown.
Yes.
Right now.
Your shingle.
The shingles. They're just about black.
Yeah, that gravel soot. Gravel mess.
Oops, wrong picture.
Is that patina gray? I can't tell.
It's a kind of a greenish gray, and those shingles, actually those slate shingles, it's more kind of a mingle from. It's got some green in it. It's got some gray in it, and when you look at it, I guess overall it gives kind of a gray appearance.
I just couldn't tell here.
Or the hemlock green. No, the antique.
I think the green side, a medium bronze is going to end up. I worked with Army Corps of Engineers for 40-something years as a resident engineer. For the last 30 years, I was out at Maxwell, selecting all these materials and all this kind of stuff. And colors and everything, when I think of bronze, I think of something that's kind of a whatever. But when you get a piece of bronze, what they bronze metal, it's going to be a shade of brown, is what it's going to be. And that shade of brown, I'd rather go something that's has a green tint to it, because it's going to match the roof that's still there a little better. If you go brown, then the roof on top is going to kind of look not as good as it could. And that's why I was saying that if we do go with brown, the upper roof, when it's ready, it would need to be done with the same material just to make it consistent. But if you have the right mix of shingles color and the right color on the low roof, it'll complement each other. And I had somebody that was going to give me a bunch of standing seam, and so far that hadn't materialized. So that's why I don't know exactly. I've gone to see them several times since we met last. And these are somebody I thought was a friend.
So it is your intention then to use this product in one of those two colors in the lower portion of your roof line?
Right now, it would go on the existing roofs and any roofs that we are able to get approved. Any addition or thing that we might add to it, it would be that roof. All the lower level. There's even a little bay window that's at the end of the dining room, and I would put the standing seam on that also.
Okay, are there any other questions for Mr. Abernathy?
Okay, if we approve it, we're going to be approving the standing seam only, right?
In
One of the two colors. Is that correct?
Well, at least standing seam. I don't want one of these. You see a lot of metal roofs around town that people's put on, and they've got screws all over them.
Yeah.
That's not a standing seam. The standing seam is just a tray-shaped piece of metal, and you can get varying heights as far as the height of the standing seam. They even the construction of the standing seam, if the roof is is flat enough, they'll actually take a machine and crimp that joint and make it tighter from the rain to help do it. If it's got plenty of slope on it and the water can hit and go off, then they may not have a need to crimp it. Most of these are made to interlock. They just kind of slip down on that edge, and there's a spot down there, and it'll lock, and you just see the seam. The old houses that they would have put standing seam roofs on back in the 1800s, all those joints would have been crimped, and most of them stand up about this high. But today's standards, some of them are a little. I don't like the real high ones. I just don't think those look right. I don't think it look right on the house.
Okay, Mr. Abernathy, so just to make sure I'm understanding correctly, you do not have a color picked out yet.
Those colors that I've shown that I have here are the closest. What did I do with them?
Yes, we see those two. Here you go. You can take that back. We've got that. Thank you.
Those are the closest of what's on this. I expect it'll be in that color range, you know.
Okay.
Those two.
Okay.
At this point, because that's what the better half likes.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, if there are no questions for Mr. Abernathy at this time, Mr. Abernathy, have a seat, and we'll
Okay.
let Mr. Duke come up.
All right, I'll just leave that seat.
Yes, ma'am. I'll be glad to answer any questions. If we're just talking about the roof at this point, what Mr. Abernathy is proposing with the standing seam metal in those basically darker muted colors is something that you've seen fit to approve in other places and is within the bounds of your guidelines. Just for the sake of possibly granting a certificate of appropriateness on this item, it may be that you just consider what's been presented, you approve that. If Mr. Abernathy sees that needs to change, then he comes back and asks you for some other approval. Otherwise, he has what he needs to move forward with that item. So that would move towards granting some approval on this part of the application.
Okay, are there any other questions, or are there any questions for Mr. Duke? Okay,
One question.
Oh, one question.
I'm sorry. If, for instance, Mr. Abernathy decides he can't afford this, then we would have to come back and start over with a separate
Only
product.
Only if he is going to modify from the roof type he has. If he goes back with, since he has asphalt shingles now, if he goes back with that, under your guidelines, that's considered maintenance. And
So he could go
they can
back
just-
with, yeah.
Right, it would just be a simple re-roof job. We would approve that as maintenance. And
I was just looking at B and C in this item 1, the composite slate-looking shingle and the metal panels it looked like. Would he have to come back if he went
Yes,
to one
ma'am.
of those? Well, we needed to understand.
anything
that.
beyond, my recommendation would be to approve it based on exactly what he stated, and if you even want to reference that manufacturer's specs that are provided by saying something to the effect of shall not differ significantly from the specs provided by Mr. Abernathy and the two colors as given here as their preference. I think that would be adequate. That gives
With the ATAS.
those of us having to make sure your wishes and Mr. Abernathy's requests are carried out, make sure that we know what we're acting on. So if we get something different than that, then we'll request that he come back to you.
Okay, does everyone understand what Mr. Duke is referring to there? Okay. If there are no other questions, is there a motion at this time?
I move that we grant a certificate of appropriateness for a standing seam roof on the lower portions of the house located at 272 East Main Street in the colors of medium bronze or antique patina, as shown in our diagram from Atlas International Incorporated.
Okay, is there a second on this motion? There's a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and it has been approved. Okay, are we discussing another aspect today, or is it strictly the roof today, Mr. Abernathy?
We can talk about the other today also.
If you'll come up to the podium here so that we can have it on record.
I think we may need some clarification on both of their parts.
Okay.
On that, so I want to make sure I'm understanding everything.
Okay, about the approval?
About the addition,
Okay,
the addition. I understand the approval. of the
okay,
roof.
okay, thank you.
I know that some of you were able to come by the house one day and physically look at the house and where we were talking about doing the addition. What I have on my drawings is the maximum that I would be interested even wanting to do. And if there's some compromising that needs to take place to satisfy all of us, then I'm willing to do that. If I need to cut back a little bit on, on the dimension, then that's not going to kill me unless I get too far back. So there's happy mediums in there that we all might be able to live with on being able to do the addition to that side. I know it's that you do not like doing anything that's visible from the road. I know that's part of the guidelines. But my house does not lend itself to being able to do that. And I guess I kind of need a little more guidance as far as what and how to do it. The very minimum that I would like to do is cover my deck area that comes out the back door and in the upper deck. And that upper deck right now is 12 by 16. And
Is this the deck to the side,
It's-
off the kitchen?
well, you've got, that goes
Okay.
toward the side yard.
Okay,
And then the deck goes down the side, or the back of the house to the back door. I want to get all of that under
the
roof.
side and the back.
Under roof, and then be able to actually screen in an area if I can't add on to the kitchen. What would be ideal to me would be, to be able to add on to the kitchen. But, I can back up as far as, I could add a little bit, maybe another 4 feet to the deck or something like that, make it 16 by 16 to make it a little bit better area to sit with it screened in. And that's more like the minimum that I want to do. And I'd want to connect my garage or carport to that roof also, so I could be able to walk in, get in and out of from the carport to the house without having to walk through the rain. Ma'am? The existing carport, yes.
The roof on the addition would be the standing.
It would be the same, whatever I do with the front porch, that's what will be on the rest of the house, on the lower levels. The only thing that wouldn't end up getting that to begin with would be probably the carport and shop area. I wouldn't do anything to it till the roof started going bad. There was, and we were happened to be in Pennsylvania, and this was some condos that we were staying in. This happened to be on the second floor, and the guidelines and all say, well, they want people to know that it's not part of the original structure, and I saw that, and we saw that and thought that would probably be a nice way to do it, and on that front side, and probably use stone down at the ground, coming up. I'm willing to try to work with you any way that we can to to do what we need to do.
Okay, it's still going to be 22 feet.
That's the maximum.
And then the screen porch added to that.
Well, what I submitted was 22 feet, and then the
Green.
well, that's just. I don't know if I showed this screened. I think I probably would like to screen it, if it was out there. And I think that was 12 foot. That don't even have to be, that large.
Oh.
Because the kitchen would take care of a lot of. Extending the kitchen would take care of a lot of things that we use that deck for right now. Because that's where, if we have any kind of function, church function or anything like that at our house, that's part of the overflow area.
But it's still 22 feet. It's going to be the main kitchen area.
Like I say, I could back that off probably.
Well,
If you needed it to get it approved, I could back off a few feet on that.
No, I don't know if that would.
And I'm able to change roof lines also to make it make a difference.
Okay, Mr. Duke, if you'll come forward and be available to the commissioners for any questions at this time.
Just need to make sure I'm hearing the request that what you have that was submitted and is in your packet with the staff report from the original meeting date is an addition is 22 by 19 with an additional 12 by 19 open area. You have a rendering that shows, and that's this rendering that shows a view from basically from Main Street, and also a view from the west property line. The other items that Mr. Abernathy is talking about as far as covering the existing structure, which would the deck that's outside now sits essentially where this window is on this drawing, and the other deck around the back is kind of shown here. The only thing I did not hear is some description of how you would cover it today. So if that's the question, then we need some better drawings that show what is planned if we're not doing this addition. Now, but I believe what I'm hearing Mr. Abernathy say is that, and it's been discussed before, that there's some hesitation to approve the addition as submitted because it extends into the side yard, that it is visible from Main Street. And I think there's some question that might, and Mr. Abernathy, you jump in if I'm off base, some question about providing him some guidance as to possibly how that addition can be modified to get approval. I'm just going to make some observations, and I'll be glad to answer any questions. The actual addition comes out no further than essentially the structure that's there now if you count the deck. If you count the deck that was there, those of you that visited the site, the deck comes out essentially to where
that's how I came up with the 22 feet.
The additional 12-foot extension of the porch, which is a good size for outdoor space, also extends the roof line, which then adds to the mass of the structure visually and also in reality, of course, but visually mostly. And if maybe there's a way that roof can be converted so that the hip actually starts here at the edge of the room, and there's some kind of shed type roof over the porch, or maybe it's a gable end, then there's a shed type roof. Then the actual mass of the roof does not extend that far out.
One thing that could be done, instead of making it 19 feet or whatever that was wide, I could actually make it a little narrower, and it'll actually lower the roof line that goes out over the porch. Then would actually, you'd have the main roof, and it'd actually come down, and you'd have a little bit lower roof. It give you a different detail that would look decent. I don't particularly like this myself, to tell you the truth, but that was what I just don't think it looks as good as it could.
Would the angle be the same as the front porch?
No, you talking about the slope on it?
Slope, yes.
No, sir. I had actually planned to make it a little bit steeper because the front porch is on the 312, and that back roof. Let me see if I can pull something out of here just a sec. I think I've got it in here. I may not have. I had sketched a long time ago. This may be it. No. Well, that shows you what I was talking about. Where you be coming out, you actually you make the porch not as wide as the structure, so it automatically makes the roof drop down, and it would make it less imposing. And the only reason I went on that, I could cover. I'm going to incorporate a permanent handicap ramp. Regardless what happens here, I'm going to do that in part of the deck that's existing right now. But it would be well, I've got an 8-foot section of my deck's kind of laid out in 3 sections. I've got an upper section that's 12 by 16. I've got a lower section that's 20 by 10, and I've got a little section that goes back kind of like a little nook around the upper deck that's 8 by 8. Well, where that 8 by 8 foot section's at, that's where I'm going to put my permanent ramp to be able to have a handicap ramp going into the facility. But I was somewhere, and I don't know if I brought it with me, I have a sketch that I made that shows how the house would look, or at least from the back, how it would look to just is that it? No. I don't have it in this packet of stuff. At some point in time, I know I gave Joel a copy because he's got something that didn't come out too good. But that's kind of it.
This is
right there. If you just screen the.
Oh, if you just screen it, okay.
If you just screen the porch and screening, putting the roof over the porch and everything, there's a back room. What used to be the back porch of the house, it's all been enclosed, and you go through the back door. Well, the slope on that roof is 312, and anything that's coming across that back deck, I would keep that 312 pitch. And if I didn't do the addition, I'd just keep the 312 pitch all the way around to cover the deck, to screen it.
So this would be, if you just screened in the deck, this drawing here, this would be just a hip roof.
Yeah.
That'd be the the width of the deck,
Yeah.
basically the 12 feet.
The overhangs or whatever.
Right. And then they would just be, the columns would be wood, post, what?
They'd be wood.
Okay.
Right now, I've just got 6x6 posts in there, that come up to whatever height.
Right, so, but the columns that you would put in.
I'd do the 6x6 since that's already there.
I did not get to go to your house.
Ma'am?
I did not get to go to your house. You're talking about doing an addition or a new enclosure onto an existing deck that is already attached. Is that correct?
That's the minimum.
Not extending beyond that, perhaps?
That would be the minimum that I would want to do. And, preferably would be to do the addition. But that would, right now, it's almost impossible to set out in the evenings on these cool nights and everything because of mosquitoes. It's almost like the old story they used to tell you about the Louisiana mosquitoes. A couple of little ones come along. Said,
You
"Well,
can
you
get
want to hear
mosquito
taking
spray
them?"
because we have done that
Well,
downtown,
we
and it
do
is
it.
fantastic.
We do it, but we still end up with bites.
Mr. Duke, I have a question for you. Okay. And I know I'm the most ignorant one on this commission, and so you will have to just be patient with me, but I'm at a loss as to what we are to do here, because Mr. Abernathy, he wants to do this, but he would do this if he had to. So I'm just confused as to what we're supposed to do right now here today. We don't have materials to approve. What are we asked to approve from your standpoint here today?
Well, I'll
Because we're talking about a lot of different things, and I just need my brain to focus on something definitive.
I'll try to kind of outline the situation as I wrote in the staff report originally, but also reflecting on it based on our visit to the site. If you recall, Mr. Abernathy's lot is basically corn lot, has a rear yard that has basically been created opposite of Main Street. And he has a fairly extensive side yard there that also fronts Main Street. Any space that he might have for improvements is kind of going to bleed over into that larger side yard just by the nature of this lot. It's not very deep on the south side. So I think there is possibly some allowance that should be given to adding an addition. You have the deck that's there that hasn't been much of an impact. The yard is somewhat screened. What I feel I'm seeing is some hesitancy based on the guidelines and also just on unsure about the appearance, that there's some hesitancy on the board to grant an extension of the size that Mr. Abernathy is proposing. And that's just based on your comments and discussions that I've heard in previous meetings, is that essentially I apologize, I'll get the dimensions wrong here in a second. The 22-foot under roof and then the additional 12 feet under the porch, I am sensing maybe more than the commission is really wanting to extend. So that would extend you past the current deck, okay? And that might be more than you're wanting to permit or you deem to be appropriate. Now, I may be wrong in that regard. And that may be the point of discussion, is to try to provide some guidance so that Mr. Abernathy can maybe modify this to come closer to what you might approve. Back to your original question, though, is what are you supposed to be approving? Mr. Abernathy has presented you with two choices, and there's either the two ways out. One, you can say, come back and say, this is definitively what I want to do, and you either yay or nay, or modify it, but that narrows down your choices and maybe limits a good bit of discussion. Or you can act on both of them and provide some guidance, or maybe even eliminate one as not being appropriate. So it's really a matter of how the board wishes to deal with Mr. Abernathy's request. Now, I will tell you at a minimum, I think there's plenty of good information here to talk about the addition. The drawing that was cited for the enclosed porch, Mr. Abernathy, I couldn't necessarily tell you whether that was being built as proposed or not, because I'm not quite sure what it's supposed to look like. So I would need they would probably need a little more information.
Yeah. Like I say, I didn't, include that. It just happened to be a sketch I had that day.
Yes, sir.
And, that's what I was looking at doing. I would still want to tie in at this point.
Yes, sir.
Come down and tie into the carport.
And I think there's enough information here to say whether or not that would be an acceptable addition, because you have information that you can relate back to the site. It's not any further out than the existing deck. It's not a further intrusion into the side yard than you already have. You have that information. What you don't have to act on that completely is what's it going to look like, materials. And so, I don't know that you can get to some kind of approval today, but I think you can help Mr. Abernathy narrow down, and I think that's what he's requesting, is narrow down what would be a possibly acceptable project.
All right, very briefly for my own personal clarification, because we have talked about so many different things, could we perhaps do some sort of a nutshell? Option A is this. Yes. Option B is this, so that we could then say, okay, we don't like that one, or we do like that one.
I am in favor of that approach. So let's just call taking the existing deck and ramp in the back. If you look at one of these drawings that's in the packet that shows the existing site, you can see the deck is here. You can see that it ramps around the back, and we'll just call it option A, Ms. Cheeves. This would be to add a covered, screened-in area over the existing deck and walkway. Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Correct. So whatever deck is present on the ground, if you were to ride by and look at that, you can see that would be the extent of this, and it would not be, the height, of course, would be lower because you're coming off the deck rather than off of the extension of the house. So, and I apologize, I had calculated at one point the height of the addition, it would be the height of the proposed addition, which we're going to call B, it would be a little taller. This was going to be lower because the starting point, the base of the deck, is lower. So the roof is only going to be, 12 feet from there?
If it's that.
If it's that high, just that high. Well, it's basically covering the existing deck. So if we were to look at the site plan or the closing survey that he's provided.
Oh, I got you. I'm with you.
I'm looking at a deck here that I've just outlined in blue.
Is this covered? Is this enclosed? When you say covered, you just mean literally covered?
I mean a roof, open air.
Open air, okay.
Mr. Abernathy has proposed would also be screened. So
open air screened.
That part would be screened would only be the side deck and the back door, I would leave it open with no screening. It'd have handrails and all the stuff that's there now.
Okay. And so that's what we're identifying as proposal A. Proposal B is an actual addition to the extension of the kitchen. So if I look at this site plan that shows an addition, it shows a 22-foot actual addition, which comes out basically to the end point of the deck as it sits today. And then on beyond the enclosed heated and cooled space would be another 12 feet of covered porch. And so Mr. Abernathy has rendered that in this drawing.
So in simple terms, for myself, we're going to cover the existing deck in option A, and that's all we're going to have. In option B, we're going to do an addition and then get you a new deck.
Well, this time it would actually be a porch.
Okay.
The roof making it a porch instead of a deck.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I've scrolled on mine trying to create some options, but the actual roof line would come all the way out to the edge of the porch. So,
and I wouldn't be with the addition. I wouldn't be objectionable. I wouldn't object to not even putting a roof on the new deck. You know, if y'all felt that it was necessary to not do that to help get it. So
okay, just clarification. So you would basically be willing to stop the roof
at the structure,
at
the addition,
the enclosed heated and cooled space,
yeah,
which would be would make it a 22-foot addition rather than the 34-foot addition.
As far as the roof is concerned,
Yes, sir. Thank you. I think that. Me too. Yes, ma'am. I think that's true. In essence, while you would have a structure where you don't have one now, or a higher structure, visually you're not any further out than the existing deck is today.
the main purpose for me carrying that roof on out like I did was to try to get coverage with a roof over the entire handicap ramp that I was going to put in. Well, no, that wouldn't affect it. Dropping that, never mind. Because, ma'am, well, it would go into well, we've got a door coming out on the deck from the kitchen, existing. And maybe I'm not sure I'm understanding what you're asking. It will come up on the existing deck. Yes, ma'am. Regardless what option or anything, it will come up on the kind of the walk area between the side deck and the back door. And that would then they could go either way. If there's a screen door there, they would come through the screen door to go into the kitchen. If we got the addition, they'd be coming through a door into the new kitchen area. But it would be after they got to the top.
Madam Chair, I have a sense again today that I'm not sure that the board is ready to make a decision. I could be wrong in that, but it would be very helpful, I believe, if there could be, let's just separate these two and discuss. Let's just say right now the discussion is completely on A, which is covering the existing deck, and then no more discussion on B until you have exhausted that one, or to the point that members don't want to have any more discussion, and then the other discussion will be on B in similar fashion.
So we would not be approving anything necessarily as far as what we're doing today. We're recommending more that you go with option A or we go with option B, and then he would come back with materials and.
Yes, ma'am. I think that's an approach if the board is not. I think it would be helpful for Mr. Abernathy and certainly for the board to start eliminating what might not be acceptable. Okay, I think there's always been that question for Mr. Abernathy is, okay, what do I need to do to get approval? Well, if there's some part of these proposals that is not going to work, then I think it's helpful just to eliminate that. And then if there's more that needs to be provided as far as materials to get to a complete picture, then that'd be the way to go.
Do you think we're talking about A would be approving covering the existing deck?
Yes, sir. Correct.
Then we could do that today.
I think if we're talking about a similar roof line to what's present on the other parts of the house and the similar, let's assume that he covers it with the standing seam metal
Right.
that you just approved, and that it's these columns would be basically unfinished, or
They'd just be, I'd probably paint them, and because, well, you'd use the columns. I'd probably just have columns at certain places, and then to do the screening, you can't go too far without putting some cross members in and stuff like that, just to support them.
Can I say something? I'm looking at these drawings, and there's a lot of stuff here, but there's nothing really definitive that I'm seeing. I mean, I think everything that all the ideas that you have are good ideas, and they would work, but there's not. By looking at your drawings, I can't see exactly what you want to do. I would like to see a better detailed set of drawings, existing versus what's being proposed. I think that would clear the air a lot for all of us here if we had a better set of design drawings that definitively call out what you're going to do with the roof, that definitively call out what you're going to do with the columns, that definitively say, here's the existing house, this is what's going to happen, exactly this. With that, I think this would be real easy to do, to approve. But looking at the information given here, even with all the options presented, I still don't really have a good sense of what you want to do.
Mr. Abernathy, I think also and maybe this would be helpful too, is if Mr. Duke's office, and I don't know that this can be done, but in the past we've approved some major remodeling with Mr. Jerry Simmis's home, and also with Louise Jennings over here on the corner of Washington and First. And maybe if he could have an idea of what is generally presented to us as far as, pictures, materials. I think what we're accustomed to seeing up here as a board is so vastly different than what you've presented that there's a disconnect here as to what we want and as to what you're presenting. like Mr. Barrett said, typically what we're presented is, okay, this is what we want to do, this is what it's going to look like, and we would like approval. And we look at that and we say, okay, well, can you change the pitch of the roof line here? Or what about changing the materials, because these meet our guidelines more effectively? We're not generally presented with such a vast array of ideas. And so possibly if we can talk about it and determine, okay, are we more leaning toward option A, or are we more leaning toward option B? And then he could possibly get with Mr. Duke's office and see how it generally is so definitively presented to us. It's just hard for the five of us to gather a mental picture, or I know it's hard for me to gather a mental picture of what exactly we're doing. So if we, I mean, do we feel comfortable as a commission pointing him down the direction of option A or option B? That's a question I'm asking.
Well, and like I said, I don't have a preference, option A or B. I think they're both fine, but I do think it needs to be, you need to pick one, flesh it out, and bring it back with the right details, with the right information. Exactly, I want to use this roof type, this material. Here's how I'm going to connect to the house. Here's a detailed set of drawings, like an architectural set of drawings, not this. I mean, this is.
You want me to go hire an architect to draw you up a pretty set of drawings? Is that what I'm understanding?
I would like to see a professional set of drawings. Yes, sir.
All right.
They don't have to be pretty, but it has to be proper.
Mr.
It's not
Duke,
going to
would
happen with me.
Mr. Duke, would it be a possibility to give Mr. Abernathy a copy of some of our previous, like maybe Dr. Simmis's request? Louise, she had a lot of changes too, but I don't know if they actually kind of mesh with what Mr. Abernathy is wanting to do, but just to give him an idea of what we generally see and just how important it is for us to know exactly what we're approving. As I stated earlier, I voted yes, but I still feel uneasy not knowing exactly, okay, did I approve this color or did I approve that color? So, and that's fine for the roof line or for the roof color, but I would like to know exactly what we're approving, and he just doesn't have an idea of what we generally see. I think that would help him as well.
If I'd had my druthers on what to do with that, I would have matched the house, period. But your guidelines don't let me do that.
And I understand what you're saying, Mr. Abernathy, and we want you to be happy in your home, and we want you to build something that is going to be conducive to your family at this stage and for company. But also, we are charged with the task of preserving the historical integrity of our downtown. And I know that the two can meet. It's just we need some more details. We need to be able to have a clearer understanding of exactly what we're approving. Not, well, I could do this or I could do that. Just tell us what you want to do and let us either approve or deny and then go from there.
Whatever y'all want to do.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Looking at this, the streetscape sign, the aerial view, would this extend further than the present structure that's on the back of your lot, which is a carport and garage and so forth existing? Would it extend visually
just a little
to the west? It would be just a little.
Like,
Okay.
probably 4.5 feet, something like that, because I have steps that come off of the lower deck into the yard, and they line up with the carpet, the edge of it.
But you wouldn't be averse to cutting your deck area so that it, I mean, I'm just asking for information so that it would not extend visually from Main Street any further than you're already extending west visually from Main Street
So not put,
with your carport.
not have a deck or anything.
Well, you've got a
Up there.
12 by 19. I'm just,
You talking about a deck, or you talking about a roof line?
well, I guess I'm talking roof line.
Okay.
Or,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
I guess
can-
I'm
I can-
talking roof line.
I can
Right, I
forego
see
that
what, I
without
see
any
your
problem.
question there, yeah.
Without any heartburn.
Just to, so there would be no more visual
When you
line
look, when you
from
would
Main
look from
Street.
Main Street, unless you were at a pretty good angle, you would not see the carport in the back.
Well, now, this is gonna be that much further forward.
Yeah.
So it'd be a little more visible just from that standpoint, being further, nearer to the street.
Yes, ma'am.
But there's still that visual line now with the carport. Okay, I'm just asking for information so I can envision what we're talking about.
I think back to the whole option A, option B, simple-mindedness. I think we simply need option A on paper and option B on paper, and then to make it much, much easier having them separately on paper rather than this is all one and we have broken it down verbally into option A and B, but we do not have option A and B written on paper. Is that a fair analysis of what we're looking for?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. But
Well, option A is just the covering of the existing patio,
Yeah.
but we don't know the slope necessarily, the
It's a 312.
312.
That's what the roof that it would have to tie into is a 312. So you'd have to keep it a 312.
Yeah, well, I don't have a problem with that, but
And the B, option B, you essentially have what you don't have is exact material that would be used. They would be. We're talking about the as the way option B is, it covers the whole gamut. Okay. Like I say, if the roof needed to back up to where the addition structure, I don't have a problem with that. And what you don't have necessarily is, well, would I use brick like the brick that's already around the house to underpin, or should I use rock or something that sets it apart from the rest of the house? That's the reason we've looked at shingle siding. I've even thought about bricking the entire thing, and that you like that the least, don't you, Pam? Bricking the whole thing.
Mr. Abernathy, this conversation here is exactly what we need to know definitive. You present us with, we want to do brick. You present us with, we want to do stone. I think what we need to do is to, if the commission wants to say, okay, we feel more comfortable with option A, or we feel more comfortable with option B, whatever the commission wants to do. But this type of conversing back and forth is really not beneficial to us approving something for you, because we don't know what we're approving at this time. So what is the pleasure of the commission right now?
may I just say one word? I think Mr. Abernathy is trying to follow the guidelines that say additions should be distinguishable from the historic building. They should be smaller and simpler in design, and that may have complicated some of what you're trying to do. And if you said something about following the guidelines, so it should be distinguishable from the historic building, right? I mean, that's
Yes, sir.
what I'm thinking you're having
Yes,
a
sir.
problem with.
Okay, and I do understand that, Gray, but what I still don't know is, we've got a rock and we've got a brick. I don't really know what we're doing here. So what do we want to do at this point with this?
I would like to see option A, option B done away with. Let's not worry about option A, option B. It's my understanding that's the job of this commission to approve petitions made or disapprove, as is. We don't add to or take away. I would like to see this brought back again with a hard plan. This what we're presented is a soft plan. It leaves, if we were to approve it like as it is, it would leave you open to a wide array of details that you could change under the approval of the Historical Commission, and that's not a good place for us to be. We need to have a hard set of plans, an exact set of exactly what you want to do, brought back to us, and then I'm sure that it won't be any problem for us to approve as long as it's within the guidelines. Just have your choices made.
Okay, so is there a motion at this time for us to hold this until Mr. Abernathy brings us a more detailed plan of what he would like to do?
I move that we hold this.
Is this proper, Joel, or do we need to deny it first? Okay, so we have a motion to hold. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Nays?
Aye.
Okay, and the ayes have it. So we are going to hold this until Mr. Abernathy brings us and hopefully can work within the confines of our policies. And Mr. Duke, if you will be able to help him to see what we are accustomed to looking at when we do approve a petitioner's request.
Yes, absolutely. Just to make sure I'm really clear on what I heard is that you have a motion to hold. What you want to see is a complete set of plans, either for both or one of these options that you feel is definitive enough that you can act on it.
Type of materials.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Down to details that are complete and the way that you would like to see it, rather than asking several options.
Yes, sir. I believe so.
Thank you.
Okay,
I believe
thank
we can
you.
help Mr. Abernathy interpret that and get back to what you would like to see.
Okay.
But I don't think you would need an architect to do that.
And I don't believe you're far away from what we need. It's just we need more.
Mr. Abernathy, thank you for coming in.
Well, thank y'all.
And we want to work with you, and we want to be able to approve what you bring us. We just need to be able to get our hands on it and to know exactly what we're approving. Okay?
Well, I think I've heard enough today that I make a few changes.
Okay.
Like roof line changes, stuff like that will probably satisfy everyone a little bit better.
Okay.
And just kind of, go from there.
Okay. And visually, if we can get some samples of some other requests and how it's laid out for us, I think that would help you a lot as well. So thank you very much for coming.
And more than likely, well, were y'all going to try to meet in August again?
The regular.
Our regular meeting, yes, sir.
Well, I'm supposed to be out of town, so it'll be at least September.
Okay.
The September meeting before
All
I'm
right.
back. So
We'll look
We're
forward
gonna
to
get
it. Thank you.
some more patience pills.
that gives me a little bit more time to think.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right, thank y'all. Appreciate it.
Okay, commissioners, Mr. Duke, if you would like to come forward and discuss anything that you have on your mind with us, and if not, we will adjourn.
I'm good.
You're good? Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn at this time?
So moved.
Second? We've got a
Second.
second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
A motion is approved. Goodbye, commissioners. Thank you.